Okay, I have screens to share. Let me get this going here. Can everyone see this okay? I'm assuming you can. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide deck. Perfect. Shane, thank you, sir. All right, everyone. Welcome to Salt Project Community Open Hour. Very glad you're here. Got a full house today. Excited and thrilled to see all of you here, especially as we head into the holidays. I think some of you are already off or are planning to be off either half day today or tomorrow. Salt Project Community Open Hour for December 21st, 2023, our last one of the year. I'd like to wish all of you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy belated Hanukkah to all of you. Thank you for being here. Salt Project is everywhere. Here's some of the places you can find us: YouTube, GitHub, Slack, Reddit, LinkedIn, of course, the Hacks Podcast with Tom Hatch and myself. This thing that was called Twitter, it's called X. I don't know. Are you on it? Is anyone on it anymore? I don't know. We're there just in case. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. Okay, for today, got some general updates. We're going to be talking about Open Hour. We're going to be changing the schedule a little bit, and I hope that this will better accommodate people. If not, it could be a thing that we work on, that we evolve, and I would love your feedback on it. So that's something that we're going to be talking about here as well. We've got our good friend Derek Ardolf here. He's an SRE with us. Amazing. This guy's forgotten more about security than I'll probably ever know. He's got some stuff that he wants to talk about: the new supported operating systems and security disclosure email addresses. Probably some other stuff in there as well. Nick Hughes, he's famous for Nick time here at Salt Project Community Open Hour. Always lots to say, lots of questions to ask. He's got a new blog out, so I've asked him to come on and talk about that. Very informative. It's great. If you haven't checked it out, then I recommend you do so. We'll check community forums with Thomas Phipps, excuse me, Thomas. Live from Las Vegas, all reliable Thomas Phipps. He's going to take a few moments for us as well. And then finally, we'll talk about the Broadcom acquisition and Salt Project's place within the Broadcom ecosystem as far as we know it today, with Tom Hatch, the creator of Salt Project, creator of Item Project, and an all-around nice guy. And then we'll answer your questions. So that's what we're going to be doing here on Open Hour today. What do you say we get right to it? If I can get the slide to move. All right, let's try it again. Salt Project Community Open Hour has a new schedule. We're going to be changing this just because the bi-monthly thing has confused everyone, including myself at times. So what we're going to be doing is try to make Open Hour a little bit more substantive for everyone who shows up. So we're going to be doing it once a month now. And in that once a month, we hope to have just more content, more stuff in general to talk about, so that it's not wasting anyone's time. A lot of times when we were doing this every week and bi-monthly, there just wasn't a whole lot there to bring to your attention. And why do that? So Open Hour is going to be every third Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. That's 11 a.m. to noon Mountain time. You can do the math from there. Our next Salt Project Community Open Hour is going to be on January 18th. Again, that's January 18th. Please make a note of it. It is not reflected in the Salt Project community calendar yet. It's saltproject.io. I'll be going in and making those changes as soon as we're done here with Salt Project Open Hour. In the meantime, we'd like to invite you to join a Salt Project working group like Shane Lee's Windows group or Elisa's Docs group. Very cool. We need your help. It's always a good thing to be a part of a working group. We appreciate all and every bit of assistance that you can give us as we head into 2024. One thing I wanted to take a minute myself, if I can, before we get into anything. And I am speaking on behalf of the Salt Project community at large. I want to take a minute and say thank you to the Salt core team of maintainers. Many of you are here today. The Salt core team, in my opinion, it's a bit of a thankless job. There's not a lot of thanks there. So at the end of the year, I wanted to thank all of you, give you all a round of applause. Let's give them a round of applause like we used to do back in the Scout Camp days. Round of applause for our Salt core team of maintainers. If you're on the Salt core team, please raise your hand and let everybody take note. That's Shane, Elisa. Oh, there it is. There it is, Shane. Thank you, Shane. I like that solidarity. Murph, thank you. There's some amazing people in the Salt core team of maintainers, and we've had some amazing people in the Salt core team and maintainers. As part of the acquisition, we lost some people, and it sucks. It's really, really, well, it's horrible in a word. So I want to take a minute and say a very special thank you to Gareth Greenaway, Megan Wilhite, Anil Sharma, Caleb Beard, and Chad McMorrow. These guys were not only coworkers, they have been, and will be personal friends of mine. And I am extremely grateful for the things that you guys have taught me, as I think we all are. So again, round of applause for these amazing human beings for the work that they've done here at Salt. And from my heart, I wish you nothing but the very, very best. All right, let's keep going here. Derek, the time is yours, sir. Derek Ardolf is here. He's got some updates and some news for us. Go for it, sir.
Yeah, and a quick addition to some of the things you were talking about is if you do look at the calendar now at solveproject.io, you will see that it's now a Google Calendar instead of that embedded calendar we had before, which means you can now add that to your own calendars if you use Google Calendar. And so, yeah, for 3006.5, this release actually came with support for a few extra operating systems, because originally we scheduled so that new operating systems would get added in major releases, but we decided that since this was LTS, we wanted to get support for these other operating systems instead of waiting. So we now have ARM64 builds for macOS. So if you have Silicon M1, M2s, what's M3 out now, maybe? Those should be working on them starting with 3006.5. We'll have an ARM build available. Debian 12, Amazon Linux 2023, and Photon OS 5. All of these, if you look in the Salt install guide, we have new directions for how to get those installed in those operating systems. And a lot of this was in due part from help with Caleb when it came to him helping create the automation tooling around repo paths and improving that, and Megan with helping getting the tests and other things in place to get these operating systems supported too, and Gareth's help with things like around Bootstrap. So again, extra special thanks to everyone who's helped get these across the line. And that should be that for the OS slide. And one other thing is that we are updating email contacts. And so this does include the security email that was initially used for if you were submitting security disclosures. Oh, a little too far that time, but
yeah, no, it didn't. This deck has a mind of its own today. Apparently, I'm sorry, Derek. I apologize.
This is being updated in documentation and on the website, so in places where that may exist. But I think that's everything for both of those.
All right, thanks, Derek. If you have any questions about this, of course, we'll be answering any and all that we can possibly answer for you in the Q&A section. If you've been a part of the Salt community, the Salt project community for any length of time, you know this guy. He's from EITR Technologies. We're happy to have him contributing to the Salt project, not only in terms of code, but in terms of content. So Nick, thank you, first of all, for writing a blog, taking the time to do that. And would you mind telling us a little bit about it now?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Chunga. Can I possibly share my screen for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. Yeah,
awesome.
Go for it.
Thanks, man. All right. So I figured it'd be a little bit easier to like point at things. Yeah, so like Chunga said, I wrote a blog. It's a guest series that was pulled over onto the Salt Project website. So go to saltproject.io and hit the blog up, and you'll see lots of great articles, including this one. And it's just a little write-up of some things that we often run into while we're working with Salt, right? So this particular one has to do with Salt runners Traditionally you run them with the salt run command from the CLI, and you see output from that in standard out, and that works great. But sometimes you might not be running a runner module using the salt run command from the command line. So in an instance where you are publishing an event on a minion or something like that, in order to trigger the publish runner execution module, and then in turn um, that runner on the master, uh, potentially that standard output that would be present on the master can show up in things like the journal control logs. And so in scenarios like that, there could be potentially sensitive information that shows up in that area, and we don't want that. So I went through the code looking for a way to turn that off, and found that there is an undocumented configuration parameter that the code will respect called quiet. And if you set that to true in the master configuration, you could turn off that runner module output that would show up in the logs there. Note that it will have the unintended effect of potentially silencing some other stuff that you may have been relying on. But there is currently this issue open, where there was a discussion on how to make that a little bit smarter, I guess, and more tuned to specific module output. So if anybody wants to jump in on issue 58203, that's where we're currently discussing on how best to tackle this this information. In regard to blogs in general, right? Like I said, there's a bunch of great information that is on the Salt Project website. We also have some of these blogs that are co-posted to the EITR Technologies blog. So feel free to pop on over to our website, and there might be some good stuff on here related to Salt that might be interesting to you folks. I did say that undocumented features was a little bit of a series, right? I found another undocumented feature regarding certificates a while back, so that if you wanted to, hit web sources or something like that, you could put certificate information inside of your minion configuration, and that way it can authenticate in an MTLS type of setup. So feel free to pop on over and see some of that Salt goodness. And then the other thing that I wanted to go over, and I won't relinquish the screen sharing just yet, but Chunga does have a separate slide for it, is Salt extensions. So we're making progress on the community Salt extensions. Anybody who's shown up to previous open hours knows that some of the code that's currently in the Salt core, we'd like to break out into extensions, so separate repositories to house that code for all of the modules related to a certain technology. And some of those extensions might be maintained by the core team and sort of hosted out of the Salt Stack main GitHub org. But some of them are more community based, right? Things that aren't necessarily something that the core team needs to take ownership of. And so we started to break some of that code out into these community extensions. And Gareth put together this extension migration repository that has a script to facilitate that move. I know Pedro's done some work on the Salt extension command line utility in order to create the framework or bootstrap for those extensions. And so all of that's going to really speed up and facilitate all of these extensions getting moved out. But at this point, we have something like 22 modules stubbed out. Not all of them are ready to be published yet, but we're definitely making progress. And there is a Kanban board up in the Salt extensions org. That's where all the community extensions live. For all of those community extensions. So if anybody sees something in the list that they have experience on or just want to help out, definitely hit that up, and we'd love to have you contribute.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Well done, sir. Yeah, I'm with Shane. Round of applause there for Nick. By the way, Nick's a very humble guy. There are tremendous resources on Nick's EITR website. So again, I second that motion. Go check out his website while you're out, wasting some time at work, listening to the hacks, farting around on saltproject.io. Make sure you throw Nick's page in there as well. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Let's see. We'll go back to sharing here. Give me 1 sec, and we'll get it going. Hopefully, everybody can see this again. Yeah. Okay. Next up, as we go through our things, Thomas Phipps, live from Las Vegas, is here. We're checking in with our community forums. Thomas, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. I actually went with something really simple this time to give Tom as much time as he needs. So,
I'm sure he's grateful. Thanks, Thomas.
One of the things a customer was asking was how they can target their master in pillars so that they can have pillars within their orchestration. And the easiest way is to use the master ID. By default, it ends up being etc, whatever's in etc salt minion underscore ID with an underscore master after it. However, you can also use the ID option in the master config to set it to whatever you want, overriding and giving you a more streamlined name. But that'll let you set it up so you can target your pillars directly, make it a lot easier.
Good stuff. Is there anything else there, Thomas, that we need to know?
No.
All right. Thank you, Thomas Phipps. Happy holidays to you, sir. And I'm moving right down the. Thank you, man. Moving right down the list. Okay, the man of the hour. He was kind enough to come in and do this. We wanted to do this a couple of weeks ago. I apologize to all of you. I had to have emergency mouth surgery. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But there was also a lot we didn't know 2 weeks ago, and so it's actually fortuitous to us that we were able to put this off for a couple of weeks, because I think Tom is in a better position, and Jeff Blair is in a better position to speak to you guys. So after Tom is done talking, if you have any additional questions, not only for Tom but for Jeff, the Salt Core team, or myself, please feel free to fire away once Tom finishes up here. Tom Hatch, ladies and gentlemen, the time is yours.
Okay, so as many of you are very well aware, back in 2020, SaltStack was acquired by VMware. And we had some interesting transformations migrating into the entire VMware ecosystem. We put a lot of energy into integrating Salt and the products that we built on top of Salt into VMware's automation stacks. And more recently, VMware is part of one of the largest tech acquisitions in history, clocking in at over $60 billion and well over 30,000 employees being pulled into Broadcom. Now, the Broadcom acquisition finalized back in November, right before Thanksgiving, and it's been a really interesting month, right? I guess it's been almost a month to the day since the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom was closed. Now, when you go out and you look at the news and you look at everything that everybody says about Broadcom, you get a certain perspective on things. The other thing that I want to mention is that we've had an interesting year when it comes to open source. We've seen an increased migration in the change in how corporations invest in and manage open source projects, with a strong shift towards pushing more restrictive licenses. And so there's reason to be a little worried about this. A lot of people have reached out personally and asked if Salt is going to be okay, if Salt will continue to be maintained, if there will be any problems inside of Broadcom. Now, unfortunately, the only information that I had right out the gate was, don't worry, everything's fine. Now, that is still definitely the case. Everything's fine. But many of you have probably also noticed that across VMware, when Broadcom came in, as Broadcom often does when it acquires companies, it did not, and is very common in most acquisitions, they did not decide to retain everyone. Now, unfortunately, this has impacted not only a large portion of folks at VMware, but also a number of people on the Salt core maintainers team. We had a slide earlier on. Unfortunately, I did not have really any say in who would stay and who would go. These decisions were made, let's just say, in different areas of the company than I was in, and it's been very, very difficult to see that change in employment for people who have been close friends and loyal friends who have done fantastic work for everyone here. But at the same time, unfortunately, we've experienced a lot of layoffs across VMware. Now, what this has done is, if I'm very, very honest, it has reduced the total number of people who are able to be paid full-time by now Broadcom to work on Salt. This made us initially quite worried, obviously, about what the future of Salt would look like. Now, I've received continual and very aggressive reassurances that there is no intention of changing Salt's licensing. There's no intention of changing Salt's or the overall contribution and care that is being given to the Salt project, but that at the same time we're going to be asked to continue to maintain Salt with fewer human resources, which again is difficult. So after spending the last month really losing a lot of sleep and diving into a lot of the particulars, working a lot with management inside of Broadcom, as well as the team here that is working on Salt, we have decided that we're going to need to make some changes to focus on making Salt more maintainable. Some of the big problems that we run into with Salt is that, frankly, it's just too darn big. Now, the reason it's too big is, well, there's a lot of reasons it's too big, but a lot of them go back to decisions that I made early on about being hyper inclusive, about bringing in new modules, and there was kind of a very rampant race, especially in the early years of Salt, to try and just make it as powerful and as big as possible. Now, in doing so, we've accepted, frankly, too many modules, too many plugins into the core of Salt. And as you're well aware, we've been working hard to strip those out into Salt extensions. For us to be able to maintain things long term, we're going to have to accelerate that process, meaning that right now we're looking at the 3008 release of Salt. We're going to have to remove a lot of those modules before they can necessarily be formalized into extension modules. And again, we need to do that just to make the core of Salt more maintainable. So you're going to see a dramatic shift there. We're going to be asking for more. We're going to be asking for more community assistance, of course, in maintaining that. But another thing that we're going to be driving really hard towards is, again, making the SALT project a project that can be that can be more easily maintained overall from a community perspective, so that regardless of what the future holds, we will always have a safe and stable project. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at, and the other thing is that we're in the process of writing up new policies around how we're going to be managing things, so that we'll have a lot of clarity here. There's a lot of nuts and bolts that we just haven't been able to finalize in every possible way quite yet. And so again, I'm trying to just give everybody a high level view of some of the major changes that we're going to need to make, again, just to make SALT more maintainable and really speed things up and make people's lives a little easier. So another area is that you may have already noticed that we've been going through and closing a lot of old issues. We're going to be changing our issue tracking policy to be more in line with something that looks like a Red Hat style issue tracking policy, where when issues were filed against versions of SALT that are no longer being maintained, then they will just be closed. The instruction there will be that if this is still an issue, it needs to be revalidated against a maintained release and reopened with fresh information against that currently maintained release. The other thing that we're going to be doing is going through and closing a lot of these older PRs. We've got PRs that are many years old. Excuse me. And if we haven't been able to get them in yet, we're not going to. This also means that we're going to be more aggressive about the standards that we have around PRs. We've been saying for a long time that if you want code added into SALT, it needs to come with tests. We're going to be getting stricter about that. Similarly, we're going to be looking at figuring out ways to speed up the tests. Hopefully that happens as we remove a bunch of modules and move those into extension modules, so that the test suite can be much more reliably executed. It's a bit of a beast. We are also looking at figuring out how we can, again, just lower the overall surface area that needs to be tested. And so in doing that, hopefully we can come back and have a lot more focus on what's happening inside of the core of SALT. Make it easier for us to push the features that we need to get into SALT, and hopefully make it easier for community members to contribute, because the test suite should get a lot leaner and a lot faster and a lot more efficient. The overall code that's in SALT should shrink because of aggressive migrating of modules into extension modules. And it should make it easier to contribute features, because a significant amount of the surface area where features occur will be able to go into extension modules, which will be much easier to test, validate, and maintain as individually released components. All right. That's a high overview of what we're looking at changing. I know it's a lot. There's a couple other things from a community perspective. For instance, we're moving open hours to be once a month. And some of these changes that we're going to make might be short-term changes. They might be long-term changes, primarily because we're just trying to scale back, grapple the situation that we have in front of us, and then kind of reevaluate where we are. And so, yeah, we're going to be pulling back a little bit on things like community open hour. And hopefully that means that the open hours we do have will have higher value, because we hopefully will have good attendance and good conversations. Now, again, I know that a lot of what I've said has been very, very vague. We don't have finalized documentation on exactly what the intent is yet. We haven't finished a bunch of the policies that we need to push out, and we haven't and we haven't finalized exactly how a lot of this rollout needs to occur. So unfortunately, I don't necessarily have as many answers as much as I just want to give everybody a heads up that yes, change is coming. We do have to make changes because changes have been made around us. And the places that we're getting our funding is shifting. And from a product perspective, things are shifting. And from a priority perspective and culture perspective, things are shifting. Broadcom is a very different company from VMware, and VMware was a very different company from SaltStack. All right. There is, let's see, there is a question in the chat. If I'm using a module that will be dropped in 3008, should I stay on 3006 until the extension module is stabilized? Okay. Now that I mentioned that we're going to address that, I'll address some questions. Again, I will preface this with, we don't necessarily have all the final answers yet. All right. Yes, please ask questions in chat.
I'll be watching in chat. Also, you're welcome to raise your hand and virtually raise your hand, and I'll call out your name as I can see it. Yeah, I'll be jumping back and forth between the pages. Kirill, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Right here, let me finish. I was starting to answer.
Oh, you
Jay
were not done.
Seckard's
Okay, I
question.
apologize. Yeah, so we'll go with Vix, and then we'll go with Kirill after that.
Okay, Jay Seckard says, if I'm using a module that would be dropped in 3008, should I stay in 3006 until the extension module is stabilized? Preferably no. Preferably you would move to 3008. Since we can't necessarily make extension module repositories and stabilize them as quickly as we would like, and the fact that we're not just going to make extension modules for everything that exists currently. What we're going to be doing is making extension modules based on demand and allowing community members to make and maintain extension modules for modules that exist. If you are using a module that gets dropped from core Salt in 3008, all those modules which we will be dropping, we do not have lists yet, but admittedly we're going to try and be kind of aggressive. Those modules that we are going to be dropping from core and are not able to move directly into an extension module will be put into a temporary repository. From there, you can just as easily just toss those modules in your underscore modules or underscore states, et cetera, directories, and they will continue to work. And we would ask that if it's a module of particular importance to you, to please go ahead and help us get that Salt extension repository going and get that up on PyPy. Please be an active participant in modules that you're using to help us push things forward, rather than staying on an older version of Salt. Okay. A bunch of questions are coming in.
Yeah, maybe I can help moderate this.
Krill, go ahead, and I'll just keep going. Krill, go ahead.
Okay.
What do you want to ask?
Hi, not a native speaker, so sorry if it will be sound slightly different but like I kind of want to raise my concern on overall situation. Like I represent a company which like really deep into the Salt stack. We love Salt stack, and like all of our processes is built around the Salt stack. We built a lot of system around it, yada yada. I was here 3 years ago after the VMware acquisition, and what I hear right now is roughly the same. Even at the time, you folks been speaking about, hey, yeah, we need to reduce like the surface area of Salt, extension, stuff like this. Nothing really happened during these 3 years. And what is concerning of all is what I've been seeing is like the Salt team being like shrinked over time. And now after this acquisition, it is probably the smallest team which Salt have. I obviously could be completely wrong, but that's the outside perspective. And I'm just not sure what's going to be different this time. Like, what's about like staffing for the SaltStack project? I mean, even if you folks move all these states models outside of core, it is still a big surface to maintain, really. And it's a very problematic one in our experience. Like, what's like the plan here? Sorry if it's like it's not very well structured.
So when we were acquired by VMware, we decided to take a pretty soft hand at shrinking the code. The other thing that I should emphasize is that Salt wasn't maintainable when we got acquired. We didn't have enough people then. And I don't think, and there were a number of things from a policy management perspective that we were struggling with. And a lot of this also has to do with how product is structured. Krill, as you're saying, you know, you're working for a company that has a heavy reliance on salt. Some of the big problems are, so I will answer the questions with the same level of directness, because one of the problems that we had inside SaltStack was frankly making enough money to keep up with this thing. And we move into VMware, and yes, we've been making money in VMware. Don't get me wrong, but as a business, there are significant numbers of priorities that are all over the place, and we have to. And in VMware, there was less of a culture of being willing to kind of say more difficult things. That is not the case in Broadcom. You can sit down and listen to the CEO of Broadcom. He's very, very direct, and I don't feel as though we're going to kind of get our hands slapped internally by saying, hey, we need to be aggressive to do things that can facilitate us being able to even maintain what we have. And so yeah, that's the change, is that when we moved over from a VMware perspective, we said, yeah, we're going to make these changes, and we started to slowly, gently. The Salt extension system was matured slowly and gently. We've been avoiding dropping support for modules and things slowly and gently. We're not going to be slow and gentle anymore. I can't afford it. And you come back and you say, yeah, I see the Salt team shrinking. Yeah. Because it's, if I'm perfectly blunt, it's difficult for us to justify the overall ROI in the investment that goes into it until I'm able to get some of these high level products, particularly Salt SecOps, and Salt Stack and Salt Config, moving and selling at an even higher rate. At the end of the day, I got to pay bills. And so I've got to figure out how we're going to maintain Salt in such a way from a core team perspective that allows me to keep paying those bills. And so the goal here isn't just that I'm coming in and saying we've got to lean things out. It's that I'm coming in here and saying, look, in all honesty, for a long time I was using investor money to maintain and develop this project, and we've got to use sales money to do it. And Broadcom's very strict about that. Now, strategically, it makes sense for it to stay as an open source Apache project. But it also means that we have to justify very aggressively now the resources that go into it. Now, do I agree with the resource allocation that we've been given? No. But it's the resources that have been given. And so I have to work with those, period. So that means that my goal is to make it so that we can have an open source project that can be maintained by community as much as possible. We have to make these changes to move forward. Now, at the same time, what we're looking at is that the economic pressures that we've been dealing with, not just us, but frankly, everybody in open source, have been incredibly severe, especially this last year. We saw the recent massive change with HashiCorp, which I'll use as an example. I don't want us to go down that road. I don't want that to happen. And I'm very pleased to say I haven't had to fight hard to make that not happen. It has not been hard to continually convince the powers that be that it's important and strategically important for SALT to be an Apache-based open source project, which I've been greatly relieved of continually. But let's go back and let's take a look at HashiCorp. If you've looked at their stock price, for instance, it has continued to decline since they went public. They're not able to garner the types of sales that they need to be a highly sustainable growth business. And projects like Terraform are very, very difficult and expensive to maintain. Now, to avoid getting into that situation, in a number of ways, we have to fundamentally rethink how we maintain and deliver software. And the best things that we can do is find ways in which we can better engage the open source community, because again, Krill, like you're saying, you guys rely on this software. And we don't have very many customers who are really excited about paying us the large sums of money that we need to receive to maintain the purely open source end of SALT. And when we struggle to have that particular vertical happen, it becomes very difficult again to continually justify that to a business. And different businesses are more aggressive about how that happens. And again, Broadcom is very aggressive about how their revenue streams occur. And so again, we have to scale back. We have to refocus some of our product sales so that we can have more money flowing in. Some of the good news that I have is that there are more divisions inside of what was until recently VMware, using and heavily relying on SALT than before. We have very, very strong traction internal. And again, this is fantastic. We also have really good visibility into how we're going to transform our product sales to be significantly better. But we've got to make that happen before we are able to allocate the funding that we want to refocus back into SALT as an open source project. And so again, to get there, we've got to travel a bit. And so again, I don't want to have to do things like what HashiCorp has done. I don't want to have to do things like what Red Hat has done recently. And I want to make it so that SALT is more maintainable. I want to make it so that it's easier for us to have a more open community collaboration. And hopefully, if we can get things slimmed down, which again, we will be doing very aggressively in the upcoming releases, then we should be able to accomplish that level of maintainability. So sorry if I had a bit of a blunt conversation, that at the end of the day, we do shoulder the majority of the economic burden of maintainership. And I've got to show better returns for that if I want to keep writing those checks. And again, if I'm blunt, I have been writing those checks for a long time. I have been working very hard to have the money that flows into this thing since I started doing it in 2011. And I started it by burning up my savings account. Now, so yeah, I mean, this is where we are. It's a tough time for everybody open source out there right now. Even the Linux Foundation is complaining that they don't have enough people and resources to maintain Linux. So Yep, we're going to cut back aggressively. Hopefully that answers your question and not in too aggressive of terms. All right, I'm going to move on to this next one from Vic. Are there some guidelines or at least ideas on how to package extensions for distributions to machines in DAB or RPM packages? Or is it running salt pip on all the machines? One of the things that we're going to focus very heavily on is making sure that we do have strong instructions on how to manage extensions in a number of different scenarios. Optimally, personally, I'm a huge fan of operating system packages, and I would always want to make sure that someone would be able to, of course, follow the core extension model, which is that they're pushed out via Python PyPI and installable via pip. But if an extension module is installable via pip, then it should be easy to also make an operating system package. But again, we want to make sure that we have strong documentation, and we would want to be able to collaborate with the people here to make sure that that documentation looks good and solid. All right, the next question from Nick Hughes is the extension code itself should be the same. The extension code itself should be the same in version 1 as whatever commit it was taken from in the core of Salt. So technically it should be stable. Yeah, that's not a question, but yes. The extension should be the same in version 1 of whatever commit it was taken from Sol. I would completely agree with Nick there.
Hey, Tom, can I interrupt just really quick? There's been some questions about Slack and what happened with Slack during the initial acquisition of Salt Project and VMware, and I think it bears a little bit of attention because it seemed a heck of a lot worse than it actually was.
Yeah, Chunka, please go ahead.
And by all means, I mean, obviously, Tom, please weigh in. Gary, this is for Gary Geeson. I know that a lot of you, when the acquisition happened, the Salt Stack or the Salt Project Community Slack, excuse me, was suspended, and very publicly so. And we have 18,000 people and change in that Slack channel. All of you were affected by this, and all of you had opinions and questions. And so, just real quickly, what happened there was the Salt Project Community Slack is off of the corporate grid. It has to be off of the corporate Slack grid in order for people externally who don't work for VMware or Broadcom to be able to talk within the channel. There's a lot of legal complications there. There's a lot of security complications there. And it's been through great effort on my part and the members of the Salt Core team and Elisa Rock, Derek, many other people, Felipe, to make sure that Slack is secure and acceptable from a corporate standpoint for us to use. It takes months of negotiation. It's very complicated. I won't get into it, but we're very proud of our Slack channel. So when Broadcom came in, they looked at it not being on the corporate grid and suspended it. Not only ours, but there were a bunch of them that were suspended. There were tons within the VMware ecosystem that were suspended all at once, carte blanche. It made perfect sense why Broadcom would do this. It is not an optics thing, Gary, to be perfectly frank. It's not something that you have to worry about with regard to Broadcom's commitment to Salt Project. To get Slack reinstated, it took me and Derek and Elisa a little bit of time to figure out the escalation pattern. Who do we talk to? That's what took time. And ultimately, it only took us a few hours to get to the CISO of Broadcom, which I spoke to him and said, hey, we need this turned on. And he said, yeah, no problem. He just flipped it right back on as soon as I made the case for it. That should not be interpreted in any way that Broadcom doesn't believe in Salt Project. As Tom said, Salt is embedded in many, many products within the VMware ecosystem and what will no doubt become the Broadcom ecosystem. So please don't take that suspension as in, a slight to us in any way. We were kind of laughing behind the scenes that, what Broadcom did was they took everything rather than take months and weeks to sort everything out. They looked at everything that wasn't in the corporate grid and just shut it down. And those that squawked got their Slack back. I mean, that was probably the most efficient and easy way from a Broadcom perspective to handle that. Tom, do you have anything else that you want to add to that at all? Or are we okay to move on from Gary's question?
Yeah, hopefully that answers that question. But yeah, from a Slack perspective, Broadcom just went and shut off thousands of Slacks and you know, basically to say, well, I wonder who's going to be upset.
Yeah. Was it ham-handed? Sure. But we got it turned on really quick, and there was no grief from Broadcom at all. They were actually very cool about it. They said, "Yeah, no problem. We got you back." So I think we can go ahead and put that to bed. That shouldn't be a reflection at all of their interest in us. Okay, Tom, back to you. Sorry for taking the time. I just wanted to address that real quick.
Okay. Let's see. There's a couple of questions that I don't have answers for yet, like can the SALT project website be made publicly visible to allow for community contributions? That is something that we need to consider. I haven't even thought about that. We haven't gone over that in a lot of depth yet. But we need to make sure that ends up on the list of things that we need to look at. The extension index has not been updated since November of 2021. That we might just want to get rid of that, frankly. There's probably a number of different components that if we haven't been able to update them before, we're probably not going to be able to maintain them right now. And so, it might need to move into more of a SALT awesome kind of scenario. But do not have finite plans or an answer there. Since we're going to be going through and closing a large number of issues to come back and address Max's questions, particularly around, let's see, this major blocker that he's pointed out. If we're able to go through and clean up a ton of the issues, hopefully we'll be able to focus on the ones that are very important. All right. What are the plans around item? The plans around item are to continue to develop and to build item. The item team is doing fine, and item is a core component of one major product that Broadcom is pushing forward in a big way, called Tanzu guardrails. And so right now, all the information I'm getting is that item's a big deal, and it's currently being maintained by 2 divisions inside of Broadcom. Right now it looks like item's going to be healthy moving forward. Along the same line, there's a question about heist.
Can I add to that comment?
Yeah.
The Tanzu guardrails product that Tom mentioned is actually a very strong play to use item and SALT together. Really committed to using the 2 things together to manage APIs and to manage inside the host or the guest OS with the SALT minion as well. So I think it's a good thing in the direction it's going.
Yeah, in a nutshell, a lot of how do I put this? Inside of Broadcom, one of the big benefits that I see is that our ability to directly recognize moving forward, our ability to directly recognize revenues that come from SALT is going to become easier, or should become easier, because of how we've restructured a lot of our product sales and management. And that we should be able to get that representation and recognition much more easily. And in doing so, I believe that is going to help us significantly in the long run to maintain SALT in a stronger and stronger way. Okay. An adjacent question is what will be happening to heist? So one of the big problems that we ran into is, and frankly, this was trying to think of the right way to say this, because I need to not be publicly negative about internal processes.
A gut punch.
The gut punch. Heist is very high priority. The problem that we're running into here is that right now we've got a number of different ways to SSH into and manage hosts. And those ways are Heist, Salt SSH, and directly embedded inside of Salt Cloud. One of the major goals that we have for the next few months is to just clean all that up and everything goes through Heist. We want to hyper prioritize Heist. It is by far the most mature mechanism that we've got for what it does, and the most capable. And you are going to see some big changes and whatnot coming through on Heist. And Heist is going to be primarily maintained. Well, I shouldn't announce who yet. We haven't quite finalized everything there. But we've got a few folks that we feel are going to do a good job of taking care of Heist in the long run. All right. Let's see. Nick asks, it sounds like we can just rip out module code that has been migrated to community extensions without a deprecation period. Yes, we are going to be ripping out code that has been migrated, and we're going to be putting code directly into a holding repository. The holding repository will not accept pull requests. Any changes or updates that need to be made will need to be made in an extension module.
Yeah, real quick, Tom.
Yeah.
I just would caution about having to, yeah, I was just going to say I would caution about having the community go off and do that right now. We're gonna make that happen and then basically hand it off to the community. The only reason I say that is we don't want to get a bunch of splintered repositories where no one knows which one is the source of truth.
Right, that's a good point, because we have not yet finalized the list of what stays in core Salt, and then what the Salt team is going to manage as extension modules. Okay. But so yeah, to refocus, if something has already been migrated to an extension module, there's probably a good chance it's going to stay there. But yeah, let us finalize those lists. Okay, since code related to new technologies will likely live in an extension, and in the near future will have module code in multiple places, is there some front door process that should be put in place to determine the best place for contributions to occur? Module contributions should be occurring in extension modules. Unless those, so, okay. We're going to try and have this list out very quickly. There is kind of this limbo period, okay? And again, the sooner we can have this out, the better. And so in the meantime, the best thing to do is to just continue with business as usual, but also some of these it's kind of obvious, right? That they should be extensions. If it's yeah, we need to get that list out very quickly. That's the best answer I have. Sorry. Let's see. Let's see, you said you're working on new policies around how the project is managed. What will those cover, and is the community going to get input in those? A number of these policies are going to be around what modules we're going to maintain and how. And how the core team is going to be managing bugs and PRs. And if I'm going to be blunt, the initial policies that we're going to be publishing we're just going to push them out. Okay. Now beyond that, yes, we're going to push them out and then we're going to talk about them. We're going to push them out because frankly, we need to act quickly and we need to get just a lot of this stuff taken care of. The aggressive policies that we're going to be pushing out right out the gates again is going to be module list, how we're maintaining issues and how we're managing PRs. Okay. Now, past that, Yeah, we're definitely going to be taking feedback and conversation about how those are managed, but we kind of have to do a bit of a hard reset, just to get our hands around this, because I mean we've got PRs that are way too old, issues that are way too old, and we need to be aggressive to get our hands around them. Okay. Beyond that, yes, of course, we're going to have communication and conversation about these things. But there's going to be a little bit of an uncomfortable hard reset, because we just got to make crap happen. We've got to make it happen fast. And heck, like Krill said before, you said you were going to do this last time, and I'm like, yeah, we kind of soft-handed it. I'm not doing that again. We don't have the time to kind of go through that. Unfortunately, or arguably fortunately. Frankly, I think it's fortunate. We have to be aggressive and just push. All right. If not salt extension index, are you going to put some renewed focus on discoverability for extensions, or are we stuck with an awesome list? I don't know yet. Sorry. I just don't have an answer yet on that one, Gary. Let's see. It sounds like we're relying on repos being present in the salt stack or salt extension orgs. Beyond that, we'll need to track awesome lists. Oh, okay. We don't have a final decision on this yet, but I would really like it if people could just make extensions and put them wherever. They don't have to magically be inside of a salt extensions org. Do I like the idea of having them in a salt extensions org? Yes. Do I like the idea of being able to have a place where we can track these things? Yes. Do I want to have to be the one or who is going through and maintaining and blessing every arbitrary extension that somebody wants to make? No, that is not a maintainable process. And so we have to find the middle ground between it. The Python Foundation doesn't track every Git repo or every submission that goes up to PyPI. And we can't be expected to do the same. And subsequently, we need to make it as easy as possible for people to just make extensions and toss them out there. As a more open source ecosystem functions in general. Okay. The more
just real quick, Tom, we're at time. I want to make sure that your schedule is okay.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up kind of the last one here.
Okay. And I'm free to keep going if you want to keep going, Tom. If people want to stay, that's fine, depending on your schedule.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just wrapping up. This is the last question that I think I can address. Like I said at the beginning, we don't have all the answers yet. A lot of the reason I'm coming in, well, extensions should be publishable to PyPI, period. Meaning there is an equivalent to PyPI for extensions. It's PyPI.
Yeah, and I mean, Tom, like I think the theme is that people want to be able to discover what extensions are out there. We'll keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that needs to be addressed. Again, I don't have a finite answer.
I'd like also to say that if the extension was created with the script to make the scalant for the extension should have a tag which is salt extension, and so you can actually search for those on PyPI, and it will give you all of the projects that have that tag. And so that's a way to currently get the list of what's available out there.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Are there other products next to the VMware stack which would fund the SALT project? That'd be great. And if I'm perfectly honest, right now, I am very focused on what's right in front of me, which is how to make salt maintainable. Beyond that, I do think that we need to consider different macro views of how the salt project itself can be managed and contributed to long term. But I'm hesitant to even entertain any of them at this point because I don't have enough visibility into Broadcom, who owns the trademarks and the copyright on a significant amount of assets in and around the project. I cannot speak openly for what that might potentially look like to facilitate broader financial contribution and whatnot. So I can't, if that makes sense. I'm trying to be kind of guarded and being like, there's certain things I would love to do, but I can't necessarily do them. Okay, and then finally, any consideration of a different pricing model for RE automation config? That I don't do that one. Believe you me, I don't do that one. And we're going to see a number of product changes with respect to what VMware is coming out with, or sorry, what Broadcom is coming out with. Yeah. All right. I've worked really hard to address as many of these questions as possible. Hopefully I've been very direct. And I've told you everything that I know, right? I mean, there really isn't anything that I haven't told you that like I can't say. Anything that I've said that I can't say, it's because I've said because I just don't know yet. Right. I'm digging around, rifling for lots of answers on a continual basis. I mean, this is my job. Sure, I'll admit, I don't show up here a whole lot. But at the end of the day, yeah, I've been working a long time to make sure these checks keep getting written. So, all right.
All right.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Tom.
everybody, and yeah, I'll sign off.
Yeah. Tom Hatch, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause. Not an easy thing to do. And I just want to take a minute to second what Tom said, that, you know, if you're not getting the answers you want, quite frankly, it's just because we don't have them yet. You know, it's easy to assume that we know everything and that we're just not talking. I want to stress to all of you that nothing could be further from the truth. If we know it, we're going to have the transparency to talk about it. And on that note, Tom, if you're cool with it, I'd like for you to come back as this process evolves to continue to answer questions to the community, because the community, you know, I've seen it in the Slack and things, you know, some statements in the Slack that the community won't matter anymore, that the community isn't going to matter. It's actually the exact opposite. The community is now more valuable than ever. It's going to be much more incumbent on the community to become stakeholders in this and take the ball and run with it because of the changes that have been implemented. So we'll no doubt talk about that more. Tom will be back, of course. Jeff will be back, of course. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you're more than welcome to send them to me. I'm in Slack. It's Jimmy Chunga. You can also hit me on my email, my new email, which is jimmy.chunga@broadcom.com. And I'll be sure to pass those along to Salt and get them, Salt. Pass those along to Tom. They're synonymous now, Tom and Salt. I will relay those to Tom, and I'll get them answered for you as best we can. So listen, on a positive note, thank you for everything that all of you are doing, that all of you have done, especially our core maintainers that are no longer a part of that core team, which sucks for all of us. I want to wish you all very happy holidays. And thank you for everything that you've done. Happy New Year, and we'll see you on January 18th. Have a good break, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.